Welcome to Southern Cooking Made Simple, y'all. Today, I'm making some loaded cornbread muffins, a delicious apple and cabbage slaw with Italian dressing on it, fried tilapia fillets, and fried cabbage. I first took my pan and put shortening in it generously, and then I took flour, and I even put the shortening on the top. And when I put the flour on the pan, I made sure that it was not only covered inside of the pan, but on the outside of the pan as well, in case if they come up over the top. Now in my bowl, I have 2 cups of cornmeal, half a cup of chopped pepperoni, 2 tablespoons of chopped red bell pepper, 2 tablespoons of minced onion, 1/2 cup of cheddar cheese, 1/2 cup of pickled juice, pickled banana peppers, 1 cup of the chopped banana peppers, 1/2 cup of buttermilk, and then about 2 cups of water. And that comes to a good, where you can stir it up real good and everything is dissolved, and then it's ready to go into your muffin tin. Now mine is an extra large muffin tin, and it gives you a whole lot more crust. I've been cooking a pot of beans all day long with 1 slice of bacon and salt and pepper in them. And I'm filling these cups about 7/8 full. So they have a little bit of room to rise. And I did put the flour and grease the top just in case they would rise up over the top. But if they do, that's the crunchy part that is so delicious. Now, when you bake these, bake them at 425 degrees until they're real crunchy golden brown on top. And then take a knife and run it around the outside of your pan, and they should come out nicely since you floured it and greased it really well with shortening. I found that oil doesn't work as well when you're making cornbread muffins because it rolls down the side of the muffin tin, and you need that crustation and that little bit of oil all the way up the side of that muffin tin. Okay, we're going to put these in the oven at 425 and get started on the fried cabbage. Now, earlier today, I chopped some cabbage into long strings, and I chopped an apple into like sizes, and half of an onion, and 1 small cucumber, and a little bit of yellow and red bell pepper sliced in there. Tried to get everything about the same size. And on the area there where the apple is, I put about 2 tablespoons of the Italian dressing mix over that before I set this in the fridge earlier today. And that way the apple doesn't turn dark because it's got vinegar in the apple, in the dressing. Now I have a cast iron skillet that I've had heating on the stove for 5 minutes, and that's how long it takes on high to get it to smoke. And once it starts to smoke, after 5 minutes, I put in about 1.5 tablespoons of oil and run that around the bottom of the pan. And then I took about 1/4 of a head of cabbage earlier, and I had shred that, some of it in smaller pieces and then some of it in larger pieces. You need it to be in various sizes because you want it to cook at different temps. You want some of it to be cooked up so it will caramelize, and you want the rest of it to be crunchy. Now when you put this in that pan and it's screaming hot, you want to put on 1 tablespoon of sugar and 1 tablespoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. And the salt allows it to start to sweat. The sugar allows it to caramelize quickly, and it helps you to get that pink cabbage look and taste. and it takes you there much quicker with my method. Okay, now after you get it all completely distributed, the sugar and the salt, you want to set your timer, and you're going to let this sit there and cook on high heat in a cast iron skillet for exactly 5 minutes. And I'm going to set my timer, and then I will be back. Now after we let it sit here and cook for 5 minutes, this is our result. And you will see that it is scorching, it's stuck to the pan, and it's brown down in there. See that? Pour in 1/2 cup of water. And what it does is that water starts to pull that scorched part, the caramelized, off of that pan, and it starts to give all of the cabbage that delicious depth, that umami flavor of just unctuous, something that we crave out of cabbage anyway. Now then, after you get that the first 5 minutes, then you get it stirred up well, then you're going to let it sit here for an additional 4 minutes on high. And then that will allow it to cook down and then caramelize again, and then we're done. Salt and pepper is the only 2 ingredients that goes in this, other than the tablespoon of sugar. Now see how after 4 minutes that's caramelized on the bottom? You have accomplished your task. You have some of the cabbage that's extremely done, and then you have some of the cabbage that's not so done yet, and that gives you a variety of textures and yummy flavor in there, and it's just delicious. Now I'm going to remove this from the pan, and then I'm going to fix my fish in this same frying pan. There's nothing better than country cooking, you know it? Down home on the farm, like Grandma used to make. In my flat bottom bowl, I put 1 egg and about 1/2 cup or more, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. And I took 1 bag of tilapia fillets. And then in this pan, I have about 1 1/4 cup of cornmeal, a 1/4 cup of self-rising flour, a tablespoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, and about 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a whole teaspoon of seasoning salt. And I'm going to cut the fillets, put the fillets inside of the buttermilk mixture, and let that sit for about 20 minutes, and let that marinate and absorb some of that flavor, and it starts to tenderize and cook the fish before you ever get it started in the pan. Now, I'm putting in salt and pepper and some seasoning salt, about a tablespoonful, into the batter. And I'm going to beat that up real good. And then I'm going to dredge those wet fillets after they've soaked in that about 15-20 minutes. Then I'm going to dredge those through the cornmeal batter there, the dry mixture. Then I run the fillets through the second time. This is just a bag of frozen tilapia from the grocery store. And I just took them, and down the center where they had a rib, I went ahead and just cut it and turned them into fillets like you get at Long John Silver's or whatever. They're easier to cut when they're partially frozen. Just make sure that every one of them gets coated, and then you're going to let these set to the side while you heat up your oil. You want to bring the oil up to 350 degrees until when you put a little bit of flour into the oil, it'll fry off instantly. Now I'm putting my first dredge through and putting the wet buttermilk and egg mixture over into the cornmeal mixture. And you'll notice I'm putting that cornmeal up on top of that and allowing that buttermilk to lay there while I'll put that cornmeal in it and make sure that every bit of that soaks up cornmeal mixture. And then I repeat this process through all the pieces, and then I dredge them through on a second dredge. Now this is what the cornbread muffins look like after you let them set in there for an extended period of time. You have to wait till they get completely browned around those edges, because you'll think they're done long before they actually are. Let them brown really good on the top before you take them out. And then take a knife and just run it around the outside edge, and they just pop right loose. Usually they're stuck right at the very tip top is all, because that shortening and the flour sprinkled on there, and then you just take your hand over your trash can and just dust that off. And then you're ready to fill those trays. But they just come right out. They're 100% crunchy. They're absolutely delicious. You're going to love this recipe. Your whole family will. And they're freezer friendly and lunch friendly. You can put one of these into your loved one's lunchbox, and when they get to work tomorrow, they're going to be so surprised and happy about that. Now, I'm going to put the fish in. I have the oil at 350 degrees, and you can see that you can just fry that flour off when it's dropped into that grease. When it fries off, that means it's ready. And then you want to drop these fish fillets in with pointing away from you. So if any of the grease splashes, it'll splash away from you. And don't let these touch, because if they touch, the crust falls off of them and they don't get crunchy on the outside. So don't ever let them steam or touch together, because when they do, then they don't get real crunchy. I'm going to cook a couple pieces of this in here. They're pretty big. Now I'm going to fry this fish just about 75% done. And when I get it 3/4 done, I'm going to stop it and take it out, because I'm going to finish this later with my meal. I'm going to put this in the oven for 15 or 20 minutes at 350 degrees. And then it needs a little bit more time to bake. So by the time I reheat it for dinner, it'll be perfect, because it's only 75% done. And then when I put it back in the oven for 15 or 20 minutes or 30 tonight and heat it back up, then it has a little bit more room to cook. It has a little bit more room to brown. And if I cook it 100% done, then if I heat it back in the oven, then they're too done and they're burnt. So I cook them just shy of being golden brown until there's still a yellow color. And then I take them out. Using tongs, I'm flipping these over after I see the brown crust starting around the outside edge of the fish. And you can see it starting to develop around the edge. And see, when it's golden brown, it's time to turn it. And notice I'm not getting this as brown as I would if I was just going to sit down and eat it right now. I'm just browning it. And I brown one side a little bit more than the other, because one side's going to be sitting on that pan in the oven, and it has more room to cook and room to brown. And if I have one side that's a little bit less done, that's the side that goes on the pan when you put them back in the oven. And you don't need any grease or anything on the pan. They've already been fried in the grease, so they'll be fine. They won't stick or anything. This is a delicious recipe. And you can cook them, till they're 3/4 done, and put these in the freezer. And they make delicious meals later on. Then all you have to do is pop them in the oven and heat them up until they're brown to your liking. And if you cook something frozen in the oven, you just have to cook it twice as long. Now see how these are getting a golden color, but not too golden? And then I'm going ahead and taking them out and putting them on paper towels to drain. This tartar sauce reminds me of the little packages that comes in the frozen fish meals that you just add mayonnaise with it. That's exactly what it tastes like. It's just pickle juice and dill pickles, a little bit of garlic powder, salt and pepper. And then just put that in the refrigerator. And then later on, you have a tartar sauce, and you can have fish sandwiches, or you can serve it just with the fish like I am tonight. And it's delicious on a sandwich. Yum. You want a bite? Y'all. My goodness. You're going to like this recipe. Well, I'm glad you stopped by my channel today. Please share with a friend or family member, somebody that you know would appreciate some just good down-home country cooking. And please like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video. Y'all come back now. Here. This is Southern Cooking with Melanie. Southern Cooking made simple, easy to understand recipes your whole family will enjoy. Y'all come back now.